Every thought you've ever had has shaped the way you see the world. It feels like these thoughts are real, that they define you, that they hold the truth. But here's the reality. Your thoughts are an illusion. They're not as real or as important as you think. Once you understand this, you'll see your mind in an entirely new way. Let me explain exactly why your thoughts don't hold the power you think they do. Thoughts are everywhere. They're in the background when you wake up. They follow you throughout the day, and they even pop into your head when you're trying to sleep. They seem so real, so personal, as if they're a part of you. But when you pause to observe them, something fascinating happens. You start to notice that they arise and fade away without your control. You don't decide to think most of the things that cross your mind. They just appear, like waves rolling onto the shore. This simple observation reveals an incredible truth. Your thoughts are not you. Let's break this down further. Imagine you're watching a movie. While the movie plays, it's easy to get caught up in the story, to feel like you're part of the action. But then the credits roll, and you remember you were just sitting in a theatre, watching. The same is true for your thoughts. When you're caught in them, they feel all-encompassing, as if they're your reality. But the moment you step back and observe them, you realize they're just playing out in your mind like a movie on a screen. One of the clearest ways to see this is by looking at the inconsistency of your thoughts. One moment your mind might say, "I can't do this," and the next, "I'm doing great." Thoughts contradict each other all the time. If they were truly you, they wouldn't be so changeable. You wouldn't constantly argue with yourself, shifting opinions and perspectives. This inconsistency shows that thoughts are not a stable, permanent part of who you are. They're fleeting, reactive, and often unreliable. The mind also has a habit of creating stories out of nothing. Have you ever had a small misunderstanding with someone and found yourself replaying the interaction, imagining all the ways they might be upset or judging you? These stories feel so real in the moment, but they're completely made up. They exist only in your mind, and yet they have the power to shape your emotions, your actions, and even your relationships, until you realize they're just illusions. Here's a practical way to experience this for yourself. Close your eyes and take a deep breath. Notice the next thought that arises. When it comes, instead of engaging with it, simply observe it. What does it feel like? How long does it last? Where does it go when it fades? This exercise reveals the impermanence of thoughts. They appear, linger for a moment, and then disappear, only to be replaced by another. If you were your thoughts, you'd disappear when the thought disappears, but you don't. You remain. You're the awareness behind the thoughts, the constant presence that watches them come and go. Understanding that thoughts are an illusion also changes how you experience emotions. Emotions are often triggered by the stories your mind creates. For example, if you think, "I'm not good enough," you might feel shame or sadness. But when you recognize that the thought is just a passing illusion, the emotion loses its grip. You can feel it fully without being consumed by it, knowing it's tied to a temporary thought, not to reality. The mind is also a master at creating fear. It projects worst-case scenarios, imagining everything that could go wrong. But if you step back and observe these fearful thoughts, you'll see that most of them never come true. They're like shadows, distorted, exaggerated versions of reality that disappear when you shine the light of awareness on them. This doesn't mean you'll never feel fear again, but it gives you the ability to question whether the fear is rooted in reality or just a product of your mind's storytelling. Another fascinating aspect of thoughts is how they can change your perception of reality. Imagine standing in front of a beautiful sunset. If your mind is quiet, you'll simply take in the colors, the warmth, the beauty of the moment. But if your mind is filled with thoughts, "I'm running out of time," "I didn't finish what I needed to today," What if tomorrow goes wrong? You'll miss the sunset entirely. The thoughts create a barrier between you and the present moment. Recognizing that thoughts are an illusion allows you to break through that barrier and experience life as it is, not as your mind interprets it. Your thoughts are also shaped by your past experiences and conditioning. For example, if you were criticized as a child, you might have a recurring thought pattern that says, "I'm not good enough." But this thought isn't based on your true worth. It's an echo of past experiences. When you see this, you can start to separate yourself from the conditioning that shaped your thoughts. You realize that your mind's stories are not a reflection of who you are, but of what you've been through. One of the most powerful realizations is that you don't have to believe everything you think. Just because a thought arises doesn't mean it's true or helpful. You can choose which thoughts to engage with and which to let go. This is where true freedom lies, not in controlling your thoughts, but in recognizing that you're not bound by them. You're free to observe, question, and release the ones that don't serve you. Before we go any further, if you're finding this helpful and want to explore more insights like this, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. It's free, takes just a second, and ensures you won't miss the valuable content we've got coming up. Plus, it helps this growing community of like-minded people thrive. When you understand that thoughts are an illusion, you also start to see the space between thoughts. This space is where peace resides. It's the quiet moments when the mind isn't pulling you in 1,000 directions. It's the stillness you feel when you're fully present, without judgment or distraction. This space is always available to you, no matter how busy or chaotic your thoughts might seem. All it takes is a moment of awareness to step into it. Living with this understanding doesn't mean you'll never have difficult thoughts again. Thoughts will still arise. That's the nature of the mind. But instead of being swept away by them, you'll have the awareness to see them for what they are. Temporary, ever-changing illusions. You'll no longer be a prisoner of your mind's stories. You'll be free to live fully, anchored in the reality of the present moment. Thoughts often masquerade as reality, but when you step back and observe, you realize they're just a story your mind is telling. Think about it. When you're caught up in a thought, it feels like the whole world revolves around it. But as soon as that thought fades, it's like it never existed. This transience is proof that thoughts are not as substantial as they seem. They're fleeting, like waves on the surface of an ocean. The ocean, the deeper awareness, is what's real. The waves, no matter how big or small, come and go, but they never define the ocean itself. One fascinating thing about thoughts is how they often reflect what you fear the most. For example, you might have an important meeting coming up, and your mind floods with thoughts like, "What if I mess up?" Or, "What if they don't like me?" These thoughts feel so real in the moment, but they're just projections of your insecurities. They're not based on what's actually happening. They're based on what your mind assumes might happen. When you realize that these thoughts are just illusions shaped by fear, they lose their grip, and you can approach the situation with a clearer, calmer mindset. Your mind also has a habit of creating imaginary timelines. It constantly pulls you into the past, replaying events and making you feel regret, or it drags you into the future, making you worry about what's to come. But the past no longer exists, and the future hasn't arrived yet. The only thing that's real is the present moment. When you focus on the here and now, you see how much of your mental activity is tied to things that aren't even real. This simple shift can bring an incredible sense of peace. Have you ever noticed how repetitive your thoughts are? Studies show that most people think the same thoughts day after day. This repetition creates the illusion that these thoughts are important or true. But in reality, they're just mental habits, patterns your brain has developed over time. Recognizing this repetition is a powerful step toward freeing yourself from it. When you see that your mind is just running on autopilot, you can break the cycle. and start choosing what to focus on instead. One of the biggest traps of the mind is the need to label everything. Your mind constantly assigns names, categories, and meanings to everything you encounter. This labeling makes thoughts feel concrete, like they represent the ultimate truth. But the truth is, these labels are just shortcuts your brain uses to process information. They're not reality. For example, labeling someone as difficult doesn't capture who they really are. It's just a thought, based on your perspective. When you start questioning these labels, you realize how much of your perception is shaped by the mind's illusions. Thoughts also love to create narratives. For instance, your mind might tell you a story like, "I can't succeed because of what happened in the past," or "I'm not worthy because of what someone said." These narratives feel deeply personal, but they're just a collection of thoughts strung together. They're not an objective truth, they're a mental creation. The moment you see this, you can begin to dismantle these stories and replace them with ones that empower you instead of holding you back. One of the most profound realizations you can have is that you are not the thinker, you are the observer. Thoughts arise, linger for a moment, and then fade away. But the awareness that notices them remains constant. This awareness is your true self, and it's untouched by the thoughts that pass through your mind. When you identify with this awareness instead of the thoughts themselves, you experience a sense of freedom and stillness that no thought can ever give you. Another way to see through the illusion of thoughts is to notice how they change based on your mood. When you're feeling positive, your thoughts tend to reflect that positivity. But when you're feeling down, your thoughts can become critical and harsh. This shows that thoughts are not objective. They're influenced by your emotional state. Understanding this helps you take thoughts less seriously, knowing they're just a reflection of how you feel in the moment, not an accurate depiction of reality. Thoughts also have a way of making you believe they're urgent. Your mind might tell you, "You need to figure this out right now," or, "If you don't act on this, something bad will happen." But most of the time, these thoughts are not urgent at all. They just create a false sense of pressure. By pausing and observing the thought without reacting, you can see that the urgency is an illusion. It's a trick of the mind, designed to keep you engaged with its endless stream of activity. Finally, understanding that thoughts are an illusion opens the door to true presence. When you stop getting lost in your thoughts, you begin to experience life directly. You notice the details you used to overlook, the feeling of the sun on your skin, the sound of birds in the distance, the rhythm of your breath. These moments of presence are where true peace resides. They remind you that life is happening here and now, not in the stories your mind is telling. And the more you live in this state of presence, the less power your thoughts have over you. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video gave you some new ways to think about your thoughts and how they shape your experience. If you found it valuable, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Turn on notifications so you're the first to know when new videos are out. Your support means everything, and I appreciate you being part of this journey. See you in the next one.